Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Onion Soup, the show where we pull back the layers of metaphysics and reality in order to kind of demystify spirituality. Today, we have a wonderful guest, Ms. Raman Hadi, and she is an intuitive coach who helps people to heal from their anxiety, stress, and overthinking. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
So happy to have you here. And I kind of want to do something a little bit different today and just have more of like a really good conversation. So I've been really want to talk to somebody about reality, the nature of reality, and how we all kind of perceive reality slightly differently. You
Yeah.
know, I know, right?
And I was like, oh, okay, let's talk about reality. I love that.
So, I mean, if we're going to talk about reality, I feel like we should start at the beginning. So, when it comes to people's individual perceptions of reality, how much does our individual childhoods, traumas, and the lessons learned early on, how much does that impact us as adults and how we perceive things?
I mean, can I say 100%? It definitely impacts us. I mean, the way that I got into this work in the first place was I started to have a lot of anxiety and I was experiencing depression and panic attacks. And I just thought, what is this? I was such a happy kid. I would experience these states of bliss as a kid and suddenly I think I was, 21 at the time. Suddenly I'm having all of these really intense physical experiences. And the first time I actually unraveled that was through my own intuitive coach. She was actually an MD turned into an intuitive coach. So she had this family physician training behind her. But anyway, she was the first person who kind of helped me to see how all of these different experiences I had had as a kid was actually contributing to all of this panic and anxiety that was happening in my life. So 100%. Yeah, we are sponges as kids. We absorb everything that's going on around us. Even if someone's around you and they don't say a word, it's like we can feel people's energy. We can feel the energy of society. We can feel the energy of going into school or it's friends. Oh my gosh, all of it affects us.
100%, I agree. And I like what you said about being children and being a sponge. So oftentimes when we look at our childhood traumas and lessons we learn, we tend to turn towards our parents. But I feel that a lot of blame gets placed on the parents. But the fact of the matter is, one, oftentimes, not always, they're doing the best they can with what they have. But also, they're just displaying the traits that they also learned in their childhood. So can you talk about like generational trauma? How does that shape your reality as it flows from the parent to the child?
I mean, it absolutely does. And I think you're completely right in that it's not about blaming our parents. And the more we can I'm really big on connecting to our spiritual essence. The more we can connect to that place of love in our hearts, the more we can actually connect to them on that soul level and see them as the soul that they are and the soul that they were and the soul that they've always been. I think there's a lot of innocence in that.
Mhm.
And when we can see that innocence, then we can reach that place of, maybe forgiveness. I almost think that forgiveness isn't even, I don't know how to explain this, but I guess the best way is to say that when we can reach that level of understanding and compassion, the forgiveness comes naturally. Like we don't have to I need to forgive and I need to, do all of the work around it. There might be some work around it, but it's just that understanding, that compassion, seeing them as a soul. It just brings up this natural forgiveness. And that is so healing. That I think is one of the most healing things for generational trauma because I think yes, we can try to heal and I think it's important to heal the actual things that happened or didn't happen. But really seeing our parents as the souls that they are, like they are older versions of children. as well is so important.
you know, it's funny because when I talk to my parents about just some of the things that I went through as a child, and I'm very grateful to have an open relationship with my parents. But looking back at it, I'm just like, well, I know that they didn't really know much, I guess, about the world and life reality, and everybody seems like they're in survival mode, earlier on. And I agree with you, it's so important to forgive, but oftentimes it's not about finding that person and just being like, I forgive you, because that might not be one or safe in that situation. But it was about forgiving the self. And I love what you said about forgiving the soul and the spirit. So, in what ways do you utilize spirituality, like one in your everyday life, but in your practice as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess starting with my practice, are you talking about intuitive coaching or my spiritual practice is my
Oh,
personal?
both. Can we
Both.
talk?
Okay, sure, we'll go both. Yeah, so in coaching, I use the spirituality by using my intuition. When I'm guiding clients, I can sort of feel into what's going on for them beyond what they might be saying word wise. And so that's one way that I use that sort of spiritual essence. I believe that we're all deeply connected. And when we can really sort of, I like to call it, it's not like we're ascending and rising. I
Mhm.
almost see it like we're sinking into this field of consciousness that we're all a part of. And when you can really sit in that and ground in that, then you can actually pick up on what other people need, like deep down, not just what you might think would help them practically, but deep down what is it that they really need. So I use that in my intuitive coaching practice. It's where the intuitive part of it comes from. But in terms of my daily life, I don't think that spirituality is just I do yoga every day and so now I'm spiritual. I have done that before where I've done the yoga, I've sort of sat down and been like, I think I'm meditating, but things didn't change because I wasn't connected to the universal energy that's present to support us and guide us. I think the biggest thing that we can do is know that we are protected, guided, loved, and safe from the entire, like, you don't even have to call it the universe. I like to call it life sometimes. Like, life is always guiding us. And when you can sit in that and live your life from that place, then I believe that things change. I think again, I still do yoga and I do all that stuff. I love it. I just signed up for this yin yoga thing that starts in January. So I love that stuff. But it's important to kind of dig deeper and tune into the support that's all around us.
Was it hard for you to start this whole, not just start the practice as far as the business is concerned, but to start your spiritual journey? Did you find like resistance within yourself?
No. I think, I mean, it's funny because I feel like there are moments where we're connected and then there are moments where we kind of forget about that connection.
Mhm.
And so sometimes when you come back to that connection, there can be a bit of resistance.
Mhm.
But for me, I mean, as I grew up in, I don't know if you know about the religion Sikhism,
Mhm.
but so my parents are Sikh and we grew up in that religion, and so we would go to the temple every week. But the funny part of this story is that I didn't actually know what was going on at the temple because they would read out of the Guru Granth, which is like the Bible. It's what the gurus, it's all the gurus' wisdom and teachings.
Mhm.
It was written in it's like a classical form of Punjabi, and it's called Gurmukhi. And I don't understand that. And most people don't understand what they're saying. So when I was at the temple, they were reading this book, but I never knew what was going on. However, I had this feeling of feeling peace. And so from a very early age, I experienced this feeling of spiritual oneness, even though I had no idea what they were saying. And it wasn't until I think it was maybe, 5, 10 years ago where they started putting a projector up at the
Mhm.
temple with a translation so people could actually understand what was going on. I just think it's funny that so many of us grew up not knowing and sick. So anyway, it was kind of funny. But so I always had that spiritual awareness around me. My parents were both very spiritual. My mom would say, come sit on my lap. Let me tell you a story about the gurus. And she would tell us these really amazing stories about selfless service and altruism. And so I think that got ingrained in me as a kid. My parents are such pure souls. They're so kind, sometimes to a fault. And so I really learned a lot about sort of spirituality through them. And I think even though it was a religion, I think every religion has a spiritual essence.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of where I learned spirituality from. So it was always there. I would talk to God as a kid if I felt like I needed some help. But then I also had, oh God, I'm like getting really into this. I also had these weird mixed messages about what God was. Because then in the Western world, I thought God was some guy on a throne. So I had these mixed messages about, oh, God is some guy on a throne that's going to punish me, even though that's not what we learn in Sikhism. So wild. But anyway, it's always been a part of my life. I think sometimes there was resistance to kind of coming back to that practice or
Mhm.
that awareness. But for the most part, it's been a part of my life for a long time.
So, what is God in Sikhism?
God is oneness. Yeah.
What is oneness? You mean like the interconnection between all things in existence?
God is just oneness.
Mhm.
It is that interconnection. And so, and that to me is actually also what spirituality is.
Mhm. When we talk about an all-encompassing entity, to me, in order to be God, to be omnipotent, omniscient, you have to be everything. Therefore, you cannot be any one thing, and you can't have any personified characteristics,
Mm.
limits this oneness, this idea, this power. But I kind of want to go back to what you said about you would go in and they would be speaking the words. You didn't exactly know what the words meant or what they were saying, but you could still feel the energy. Would you say that it's the energy of the place and the connectivity, the connectiveness of everybody in there, or did the words have some type of power?
Probably both.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I think words do have a lot of power, even though you don't, it's like, I don't know what this word is. But it was also the way in which they were, yeah, it was the energy of the place because everyone would go to the temple for some sort of spiritual connection. And so I think just being in that place was super helpful. Also, looking around, you would see some people who were fully just engrossed in the words, and they were so present to that spiritual essence. And so I was always very curious about that, like, oh, why is that person so, they look like they're in a state of bliss, like what is that about? So I think it was both the word and the energy.
Interesting. I think that's very important because it's like when you look at spirituality, a lot of times people think that it's a cookie cutter, like there's one way to do this act or get close to God, and it's not. There are different ways to be closer to spirit or universe or God or whatever name you want to put to it. But excuse me, I like lost my voice like a week or two ago.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, just been like struggling to come back. It's so crazy. It sucks because I love to sing.
Oh my God, I feel you. I feel you. Sometimes I'll sing so much and I'm like, why did I do that? I can't talk now.
So
I get
sorry.
it.
But one thing that I did want to cover, and we were talking about the energy, nature of reality, in words. And I was watching some of your videos. I love your videos. And you talk
Thanks.
a lot about the law of attraction and manifestation. So, what are your thoughts about conscious manifestation versus unconscious manifestation? Because I think I would say that we're always manifesting something, but oftentimes we're manifesting, or people tend to manifest unconsciously.
Yeah, I mean, oh, this is such a fun topic. So, yeah, I agree with you. We are always manifesting. We're always, what is manifesting? It's just creating our life. We are powerful creators of our reality. And I think when we are unconsciously manifesting, that's when we are kind of trapped in maybe the past trauma that we've experienced.
Mhm.
Trauma does this weird thing where it almost freezes us in that experience. And then even if, I'm 28, even if it happened at 18, it's like I'm still 18 inside
Mhm.
and I'm still in that place. And so trauma can do this thing where it holds us in a certain time in our life. And then we start to repeat certain patterns, behaviors, but also like energetically, it's like we're aligning to things based on where we were at when we were 18 years old. So I think a really big part, I know it might sound like it's unrelated, but a really big part of consciously manifesting is actually seeing, well, what's going on in my body? What's going on in my energy? Where am I actually trapped right now?
Mm.
Sometimes, like one of my biggest traumas was when I was 1 years old, and I've never actually talked about it publicly, but I've been doing this work for like 5 or 6 years, and I'm like, why haven't I talked about it? I need to start sharing it. But briefly, as a kid, my parents were immigrants, very hardworking. They had already had my brother. He's 2 years older than me. And when I was 1 years old, my grandparents asked if they could take me to India. My grandparents would kind of go back and forth from India to Canada. And so
Mhm.
they actually took me to India. And so I was there for like a year almost. And for 6 of those months, I was with them. I was in a really, a more positive space. But for the other 6 months, an uncle like came to India and he took me to my dad's village. And my dad's village is a very poor village.
Mm.
And so for a good amount of time when I was one, like this is like developmental, I was in this village that was more poor. When my mom came and picked me up at the end, like my hair was fried. Because I was out in the sun all the time and I was like eating dirt. It was not okay.
Mm.
And so every now and then I have to, also be conscious of, if I do start to feel a bit of panic, it's like I have to remember that that's that 1 year old, right? That 1 year old that felt unsafe or that felt, maybe unwanted or abandoned or, all those things. And so when we can really feel into that trauma and let it go, what it does is it opens up, it liberates our energy so that our most abundant energy can then start to create
Right.
our reality. So I know I could say, oh, do a bunch of affirmations and then you'll create your best reality. But the truth is, our reality will be created from the essence that we are giving off, from the
Yes.
energy we're giving off. And I think that's where we can get mixed up with manifestation sometimes. But yeah.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, yes, affirmations do help, but what affirmations do, it mostly helps with let's say, the reprogramming of the mind.
Mm.
Because a lot of what we're saying, a lot of what we think is on repeat, and it's about 85, 90% of what goes on in your head is typically on repeat. So that's
Mhm.
why affirmations tend to help, because if you're constantly saying positivity, speaking positivity to yourself, into your life, it has this habit of repeating itself. And then when you go
Mhm.
down that rabbit hole of trauma, or you have a traumatic experience come up, that you get like a trigger almost with the affirmation that pops up right alongside that. And eventually those things won't trigger you. And if they do, they won't trigger you to such a degree, because you
Mhm.
charged yourself with this positivity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do actually enjoy affirmations, but even in the word affirmations, it's like
Yeah,
you're affirming something that you believe deep down. So I think as long as our energy aligns with the words, it's like super, super powerful.
sure, 100%. Well, we're going to take a really quick commercial.
Open your mind and expand your consciousness. Welcome to Chakra Wonders, where style meets soul. Designed to uplift your energy and inspire your path to higher awareness. Every piece is a reflection of the cosmos and the power within you. Explore our collection and discover what resonates with your soul. Visit chakrawonders.com and step into conscious living. Chakra Wonders, conscious style for a conscious world.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And I wanted to point out something that I saw on your website. I love your website as well. but
Thanks.
and I wrote this thing down where you say there's a big difference between knowing yourself and embodying yourself. What did you mean by that? I love that.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So I think we can know certain aspects of ourselves. So, for example, you could know that, well, I like playing guitar and I like to sing and I like doing that. And it seems like I like that versus actually feeling that, being that, embodying it means to like sit in the energy of that and to act from that place. So for example, you could say, oh, I love all those things, piano, etc., etc. But if we're never actually like sitting down and playing the piano, there's a difference between like, it's like we know it up here but we're not feeling it in here. So knowing something is more of like a mind based thing, embodying something is really feeling it in our body. Just the word embody has the word body in it.
Hmm. I love that. And I look at it like I'm an avid reader, like I love to read. But there comes a point where you read all this information and you know all these things, but you have to start practically acting upon it and then integrating that into your life because you can know something all day, but you can intellectually conceptualize an idea, but until you put it into practice, do you really know how to bake a cake? you know?
It's true. Yeah. Yeah.
But and one of the other things you have on your site is you talk about not being afraid of the shadow. I think it's a quote you got from somebody else, but you talk about not being afraid of the shadow because all a shadow means is that there's light nearby.
Hmm.
And I just found that to be so inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I forgot who that quote is by, but it's so inspiring because I think when we are in the darkness, we forget that we can turn the light on. We can see what's really going on. We can start asking the deeper questions. I mean, most of the people that I know that have been through, what you can call a spiritual awakening or just really big changes in their life, it usually comes from some sort of suffering. It's like, oh, something was so bad that it's like I had to turn the light on. I had to start asking the questions. I had to start asking, well, what is life about? Like, the really deep questions. Why am I here?
Mhm.
What's the point of all of this? And the answers that come out of those questions, I believe, are light. Like they're filled with light. And so if you're going through a period of darkness, it's so amazing how close you are to that light. And sometimes it takes like a really hard thing happening in our life as, the sort of catalyst to that big change.
Do you ever find that people with some of the darkest trauma and the craziest backgrounds would have the most love, but also have the most powerful transformations?
Yeah. I mean, you just said you're an avid reader. Oh my God. I remember reading Oprah's story and hearing, oh my goodness. Yeah. She has a book called What I Know for Sure.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Beautiful book, would highly recommend. But it's it's incredible to see the resilience of the human spirit. And it's amazing to see that she went through a lot of stuff. And yet here she is, this like bright light, was able to impact the world in such a big way. And I'm sure if you've picked up any other person's autobiography, you'll see that common thread.
I
Yeah.
agree, but there was something about Oprah's story. I agree with you. It was so impactful. And then, because, when we all see Oprah now, we see her as this mogul, this philanthropist and highly successful. But it's interesting just to watch where she came from. And it's like that darkness in her background. And she uses it as empowering to help other women and just to help the world and society around her.
Yeah,
We only have a few
absolutely.
minutes left. Is there anything that you want to leave with the audience?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I've been pondering this question that I heard from Dr. Joe Dispenza, which is, what if the worst thing that happened to you was the best thing that happened to you? And that really reminds me of what we're talking about. I think we are so quick to fall into that victim role. Or what if these really hard things were actually like the door to
Mhm.
your greatest impact, to your greatest connection with other humans, to your greatest abundance? I just think it's time for us to start changing that narrative and to like really own our story, to really own our story. Yeah, there's so much power that we have.
For sure. I'm actually a big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza as well. He also wrote Becoming Supernatural, right? Is that
He
him?
did. That's a good one. Another
That's,
recommendation.
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I remember when I was reading it, I was like, okay, I'm just taking notes the whole time.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
tend to agree with you with sometimes the craziest things that happen in your lives, or that's what propels you forward. For me, I always had a problem with speaking my mind and speaking my truth, and never thought that I'd be able to do something like this and just talk to people. So, like,
Yeah,
it's the thing that I love to do.
absolutely. And Dr. Joe Dispenza's story is amazing. I mean, he at one point he was in a wheelchair. He was in a major accident, I believe it was, and he healed himself. And like, look at him go. Look at him helping all these people in the world. It's like, what if your worst moment was the actual best moment? You know?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, pain, unfortunately, pain tends to be the catalyst for greatness.
Mm-hmm.
But that is all the time that we have for today. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I truly enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Hey, all right, everyone. Bye.